months and months ago, Reverend Nikki and I were planning this series with Brene Brown's Braving the Wilderness book. And when we came to chapter 6, I said, oh, we have to call the talk whispers of our wild heart. And this week, as I got ready to do the talk, I looked at chapter 6, which is called Hold Hands with Strangers. I thought, what in the world does one have to do with the other? Everything. Brene Brown starts the book by saying, we're in a spiritual crisis, and the key to building a true belonging practice is maintaining our belief in inextricable human connection. She goes on to say the flow of spirit between us is never broken, but our belief that our connection is broken is actually what keeps us feeling separate. In the world of metaphysics, in unity, or in New Thought, we would say it a little bit differently. We would say, we are one with God, always, period, exclamation point. It's when we think we are separate from God that we get in trouble. In the Gospel of John, Jesus said, the Father and I are one. Metaphysically, we are Jesus, so we are the I am. I am one with God. I am one with Spirit. I am one with divine mind. I am one with my divinity. And when I think I'm separate from my divinity, then I make choices that A, are not in my highest and best interest, B, are not in the highest and best interest of other people, and C, I'm making choices that actually disconnect, disable, disappropriate my feelings or my belief from my oneness with God, from what's most important. So what is most important? It's a big question. And when we ask big questions, we get these immense answers. Before I recognized that I was on a spiritual path, and it's not that we're never not on a spiritual path, it's just that we don't always recognize that we're on a spiritual path. So before I was recognizing that I was on a spiritual path, I asked myself a big question. I got an immense answer, and then I allowed my fear of the immensity of the answer to lead me to strategizing. Let's just say it that way. Strategizing, this is a pattern. Big question, immense answer, strategizing so that I could perhaps have some influence over the outcome. I know you've never done that. So when my children were young, one of the most important things to me was their education. And where we lived, the answer to the big question of what's most important about their education, the immensity of the answer was to send them to private school. So I immediately began to strategize. Such a nice word. Strategize, like who could I influence? What friends did I have that I could influence, that could influence other people, who could influence other things, who could actually have an influence on whether or not my kid got into that private school? And this went on for a little while because I recognized that really what I was trying to do was control the world. And one day in meditation, it came to me that I could put this private school application in the prayer box. So I sat with that. And then I got that sweet whisper of my wild heart, that sweet whisper of the divine. And the divine asked me the question, have you done everything that is yours alone to do? And if the answer is yes, then let it go. So the next Sunday, I got a prayer request form and I wrote down divine order. And then my sweet whispering heart said, somebody's kid's going to get in and it might as well be Mark Tucker. So I wrote that down too because that's where I was at the time. That's what was most important to me at the time. So what's most important to you? What are the whispers of your wild heart telling you? Because when we listen to those whispers of our wild heart, we're reminded of our oneness with God and all of life, with the planet, with the environment, with each other. We're reminded of our divinity. And when we're reminded of our divinity, we remember our inextricable human connection. And when we have that inextricable human connection, we are lifted up into something that's greater than us. We are lifted up into what is called a superordinate goal. A superordinate goal. It sounds glorious, doesn't it? Okay, what does that mean? Maybe you know. Psychological definition is a superordinate goal, vision, mission, purpose is a coming together of people, often from opposing sides, to work toward a common end. If we were to give it a more spiritual definition, we would say a superordinate goal, vision, mission, purpose is the coming together of humanity to create joy, love, peace, health, abundance, and harmony. So a superordinate goal is an expansion of consciousness. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven, and it did not have one iota to do with religion. Jesus was all about building community. He was about shaping behavior. He was about allowing people to be led by their own superordinate goal. His teachings could have been used for political purposes, and there were many at the time who thought that they should be. His teachings could have been used for religious purposes, but the Pharisees were quite clear at the time that they were not. Jesus, his superordinate goal was love. The community he wanted to build was about love. The behavior he wanted to shape was about love. The expansion he wanted to have in people's consciousness was about love. He wanted us to remember our oneness with God, our own great I am. He wanted to draw us up into a superordinate goal. And yet, life at that time was hard. There was polarization between the Jews and the Gentiles. The natural demands, or the everyday demands of people, made life feel very gritty and very difficult. In the same way that the demands of today can make us feel like life is gritty and difficult. One of the gifts that Jesus gave us, one of the teachings, was that everyone had value. Everyone had value. The Samaritans, the poor, the tax collector, even the Roman centurions had value. And if you think about then the polarization and today the polarization, it's really kind of the same thing. The Muslims have value. The immigrants have value. The blacks have value. The whites have value. The gays have values. The straights have value. The IRS agents have values. And even, it's almost April 13th, how can we resist? But even the Democrats and the Republicans have value. When we remember our own divinity, we can see that. But it's the people who make it hard for us to remember. Brene Brown says this: everyday life can be hard, and the people around us can push us to the very edge of our nerves and our civility. And then she gives us a penis cartoon. Peanuts. Now I am going to go as red as your snow. There's a T. I don't see it, but it's there. Oh boy, that is one for the record books. Okay, so she gives us this cartoon where Linus says, I love mankind. It's people I can't stand. There's a YouTube of Pima children sharing a teaching from Shanti Deva on YouTube. It's 3 minutes long. I invite you to go look at it. It's called Lousy World. And it starts out like this. This lousy world. These lousy people. That lousy government. This lousy everything. Blah, 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 blah. The person in front of me is too tall. The person beside me is too fat. And that person over there is wearing perfume, and I'm allergic to perfume. Ugh. She said, the teaching goes on to say, when we get uncomfortable by all of this lousiness, it's like being barefoot and walking across blazing sand or shards of glass. And in order to avoid the pain, all we want to take out is this giant sheet of leather and cover everything and everyone with it. Because when we cover them up, we don't see them anymore. So I'm going to get rid of him. And then I'm going to get rid of her. And then I'm going to ban all perfume. And then I'm going to get rid of everything that has ever bothered me, including mosquitoes. And I will be happy. Oh my goodness, right? Some of us are laughing because even I recognize myself in there. But that giant sheet of leather that we're covering up everything with actually is a disconnect from our belief in our oneness. It's that break in our belief that we're one with God in all of life. And if we begin to control the universe by covering everything up, then we find that we're very lonely people. The conflict in the Middle East is been going on for generations upon generations. Do you guys know what ultimate frisbee is? Ultimate frisbee is a game you play with a frisbee, and it's kind of like football, but it's kind of like basketball, and it's kind of like soccer, and you play it with 2 teams. Well, there's an organization in the world called Ultimate Peace. Ultimate Peace goes into communities where there are both Israelis and Palestinians, and they create summer camps for teenagers. And they bring in both the Israelis and the Palestinians to these summer camps, and they teach them how to play ultimate frisbee. Because there are values in the game that actually contribute to learning conflict resolution. Now, Ultimate Peace does not have the goal of bringing peace into the Middle East. That is not their goal. Their goal is to teach these values to children so that a mindset can be changed. A mindset. That's changing consciousness. So you see the difference between getting attached to a desired outcome and having a superordinate goal. Here's what I had to learn about ultimate frisbee for this whole idea to make sense to me, because like I said, in the Middle East, this conflict has been going on for generations upon generations. It's lasted millennia. And even in the last 50 years, with the most sophisticated diplomacy, there has been no headway in creating peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. A superordinate goal has within it, by definition, values. So if you look at the superordinate goal, it has the values of joy, peace, health, abundance, and harmony. These values actually become a guiding principle. When we have a guiding principle as our inner compass, we have no need for an exterior judge to tell us what to do. And in ultimate frisbee, there is no referee. It's up to the players to resolve whatever differences happen on the field. So if there's a dispute, they work it out between themselves. So let's just say we were playing ultimate frisbee, and good old Bud over here is about ready to catch the disc. Hold up your hand. Here it comes, and I hit his hand. I hit his hand. I knocked his hand. And he turns around to me and he says, Reverend Mindy, you fouled me. And I say, no, I didn't. And so the whole game stops. Well, Bud and I have a conversation. And in the conversation, we either need to come to resolution so that the game can start from right at that point, or we don't come to resolution and the disc goes back to the person who threw it in the first place. Now, when we're having this conversation, it could be that Lisa over here on my team comes over and says to me, you know, Reverend Mindy, you actually did hit his arm. And I can say, wow, I didn't actually see it as hitting his arm. Thank you for that perspective. I'm sorry, yes, it is a foul, or whatever I choose to say. Because the thing about Ultimate Frisbee is you could win the game. Your team could win the game. But if you don't have the respect of your opponent, and if you don't have the respect of your fellow teammates, then what have you really won? Ultimate peace. The founder of Ultimate Peace says this: what is clear is that the Jews and Palestinians who've been a part of the Ultimate Peace Project have begun to see each other in new ways. We're talking about deepening understanding and building empathy for people you've always seen as your enemies. They become best friends with each other, and they know that all the stuff they've been indoctrinated with is just a bunch of what Reverend Nikki called last week poppycock. It is just poppycock. Hold hands with strangers. Listen to the whispers of your wild heart. Step into that superordinate goal. In the big scheme of history, life is short. Our parents will die. Friends will come and friends will go. And some of our children will die. But we can today choose to focus more on loving and less than controlling when we remember our divinity. When we remember that we're inextricably connected with each other, that we are one with God and all of life, all the planet, all the environment, and one with the person who is actually sitting right next to us. It's a superordinate goal, and if you are interested in this at all, I invite you to say these affirmations. I'm going to say them first, and then if you could repeat them after me, after Cece clicks to the next slide. Thank you, Cece. I love myself. I love myself. I embrace my divinity. I embrace my divinity. I value my oneness with God and all of life. I value my oneness with God and all of life. I embrace our collective divinity. I embrace our collective divinity. I love you. I love you. Turn to somebody and say, I love you. I love you. I love you. And I love you. You're beautiful, you're strong, you're powerful. You have the capacity to let go of your past and celebrate who you've become. So let's sing that as we come into a time of meditation. I love myself. I embrace my divinity. I value my oneness with God and all of life. I embrace our collective divinity. I love you. I am beautiful. I am powerful. I let go of my past and celebrate who I've become. I am beautiful. I am powerful. And I
what you are. Savor the ways in which you love. All the different delicious and delightful ways in which you love. That you make a difference in your life and in another's life by simply being love. Celebrate the ways in which you find joy in life. Whatever it is for you. Things that make your heart sing. The things that find you and you begin to engage in those things. And suddenly hours have passed because you're having a good time, focused in on what you're doing. Celebrate the ways that you bring peace into the world. The times you let that snide remark simply go by. The times you stand up for yourself and say, I don't like that. The times you honor another person who's in pain. The times you're kind for no other reason than you want to be. Allow yourself to celebrate all of the various ways that you bring light into this world, into your world, and you share your light with another. And let's take these thoughts into the sacred and holy silence. Now imagine that you're looking into a mirror. Something that's sometimes very hard for us to do is to look at ourselves in a mirror. Give yourself an opportunity, a moment to make eye contact in the mirror. To really look at yourself. To really see yourself. To really celebrate yourself. And then I'm going to ask you to hold your hand up and actually touch the mirror so that your hand is touching your hand in the mirror. This is a form sometimes of holding hands with strangers. Because sometimes we are the biggest stranger to ourselves. By looking at parts of us and declaring them that they're not good. Yet hold hands with all of the parts of yourself in the mirror in this moment. And say to yourself, you can say it quietly, you can say it out loud, it's up to you. I love you. I love you. I embrace my divine nature. I see the divinity in me. I value myself, and I value my oneness with God. And out of that valuing, I can value another. I love you. And then let your hands come down from the mirror. And as we sing our meditation song, allow yourself to sing it to you, to yourself. Together. I am beautiful. I am I celebrate who you are